It's wonderful, it's marvelous, you should care for me. Softful nights, it's paradise, it's what I love to see, my dear, it's four-leaf clover.
Hi, I'm Lynn DiMenna, and I'm here for Cabaret Scenes with the wild and wacky Mark Nadler. Mark?
That's me, wild and wacky.
So we're here with the court jester of Cabaret.
In my own court.
In your
in
own
my
court.
own little corner.
In your own little corner of the world, in
my own little
lovely
chamber.
Riverdale. And last night of all things, I don't want to really date the interview necessarily, but the Bachelorette was on, and she's dating a fellow from Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
My mom was raised in Cedar Rapids.
I know that there's a connection, and that's where your
Wow.
first saloon gig was.
No, that was in Cedar Falls.
Oh, Cedar
I mean, for those who know
Falls.
Iowa, there's a big difference
Oh,
between
okay.
Cedar Falls and Cedar Rapids.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, all I know is it was miles and miles and miles of farmland, and just picturing you in that atmosphere is tough. You're a city boy. You're a city boy. There's no question.
It's true, Lynn.
And you've taken New York. Really, when you think of the journey that you've had from 17,
I came
into
here
New
when I
York
was 17.
from Interlaken,
Yeah.
and you've done everything there is to really do in the New York community, cabaret, theater. I don't know.
In cabaret
given-
and theater, yes. Yes.
You've got a lot more planned, I can see from the
Well, I
expression.
mean, there's still a lot to do.
to do.
You know?
Well, true. But when I say that, I mean within the specific genre of cabaret, the shows that you've mounted and have been so inspirational, frankly, to the rest of us.
That's a nice thing to say.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
true. It couldn't be truer. I mean, the way you put together a show with such thought and such, there's got to be a theme and a concept. It's not just a list of songs.
Well, I wasn't always that way. There was a long time, you know, when I came to New York in 1979.
Right.
And the Algonquin reopened, I think it was 81, 82.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk around town of people like Andrea Markovici
Steve Ross,
and
who
Steve. Well,
opened
Steve,
it.
it was created
Yeah.
for Steve.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
But particularly Andrea was doing theme shows.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk around town about these theme shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically said, I'm not going to do that. I was looking to people like Bette Midler,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and these worlds that she created with Cabaret.
Right.
And-
yeah, I can see that.
And I wanted to do that. I didn't want to do a theme.
Mm-hmm,
I wanted to have an evening. Dawn Hampton, you may not know Dawn Hampton, but she's a wonderful singer. And she used to do an evening of songs that had nothing to do with each other, but each one was a little play in and of itself. And I wanted to do that.
Yeah, interesting.
And then as I started, actually, the first theme show that I did was with KT. It was,
Is that right?
It was American Rhapsody, our Gershwin review.
So you had built up your following at Sardi's with the Hootenanny idea.
No, I built
No?
up my following originally really at the Five Oaks, which
Interesting.
I started working at the Five Oaks in '84. And that was a place on Grove and Bleecker. It was
Right.
I don't want to call it a piano bar because you didn't sit at the piano. It was sort of like what Don't Tell Mamas is now, except for that it was much more wild and much more fun, frankly. And there was a woman named Marie Blake who was this old black woman. When I met her, she was ancient. And I knew her for 10 years, and she was ancient when she died. But she would play and sing, and in her breaks, or Stephen Lowenthal or Bobby Pico
Wow.
we would play in between during her break so that she could take a 45-minute or an hour break. She was ancient. And we would play all night long from 9 p.m. till 3 a.m. or from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m.
Boy, this is
And she
paying-
would too.
Really? Wow. Amazing.
And she'd go back and sleep while we were working. But that's where I really developed my New York City following.
and built your repertoire for sure.
I had
You didn't
already-
come into. Did you really?
You know,
You came
Lynn,
into New York with a.
Because I started playing in a saloon when I was 11,
So young,
not 10.
yeah,
I was
well,
almost
that's
11.
true.
I started building my repertoire really early. And I was, I was in Iowa. There was nothing to do. So I listened to show tunes and I loved them and I learned them.
And you sat there longing,
Dreaming.
dreaming to get to New York and be as wild and as crazy as possible, because that was.
I was thinking about this today. I mean, this is a crazy thing, but I've actually lived the life that I set out to live.
Yeah. Well, how many people can say that?
It's really crazy.
Well, that's precisely why you become very inspirational, whether you know it or not,
Yeah, I guess
because
so.
very few people really get that opportunity. Truly,
Yeah.
to actually, that's
it
what
helps
you
that
wanted
I play
to do.
the piano. Helps a lot because, as any singer in this city knows, it's expensive to hire an accompanist and rehearse and have them create your arrangements and create your charts. And I don't have to pay. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. But I don't have to pay for any of that.
Right.
I do my own arrangements. I do my own charts. I do my own orchestrations. When I sang with the New York Pops 75-person orchestra, I did the orchestrations.
Yeah.
Not for everything, but some of it I had some help.
Right.
But I do that stuff. And so I didn't have, that made me able to make money in this business in
Sure.
ways that other people can't.
Just cannot do. Yeah. Well, that's an important quality to have or to bring to this whole endeavor, because, as you say, it's a very tough business. It's a very tough
Well,
road.
it's for most people, it's not a business.
Yeah.
A business is the way you earn your living.
Yes.
And for most people,
In this.
cabaret is not that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not valuable for most people.
Exactly.
And that they're not valuable. It just means that that's not how they earn their living.
Yeah,
It is how I earn my living.
Right.
It's how I've
and
always
there are
earned my
just
living.
very few who can say that.
Yeah.
And that's the shame.
And that's the thing, as you all were setting up today, and I was thinking, dag, Slim, look what you've done.
You should be saying that to yourself
Yeah.
right now, and that's why we're doing this interview with you, because I think you've reached a point really that very few in the business manage to.
Well, that's
to do.
nice to hear.
Your 75-piece orchestra, for example, that was one of the highlights of your life, and you've
It
had
was.
many since and before.
Yeah.
You've had an awful lot of really dazzling moments in
Yeah,
your career.
I'm really lucky.
Yeah.
I can't deny that.
The whole business of bringing your show over to Australia and the success that you had there, that
Well,
had to have been the
that's-
thrill of your life.
The first time that I played the Adelaide Cabaret Festival in Australia was with KT.
Yeah.
And they booked me, they booked KT and me to do a duo show. They booked KT to do one of her solo shows, and they booked me to do Tchaikovsky and Other Russians. And
Perfect. Perfect booking decision, as far as I'm concerned.
well, and it was really, so I accompanied KT on her show. She did Ladies of the Silver Screen. I think we did the Gershwin show
think
that
you
year. I'm
may
sure we
have,
did.
yes, uh-huh.
And then I did Tchaikovsky and Other Russians, which is Tchaikovsky was my first solo show that had a theme.
And that was at the Firebird, was it not? Or maybe you did a version of it at the...
Well, the way Tchaikovsky came about was Donald Smith was doing the cabaret convention, creating the cabaret convention at the town hall, and for a time he was booking people for one night only into the Algonquin.
Oh,
After
yes.
the cabaret
After the show.
convention.
Yeah, right.
And he booked me to do one night, and I thought, my Algonquin debut at last. And so I thought, I want to do something really different than what other people do at the Algonquin. And I chose a bunch of numbers. I didn't have any idea how they would go together. I just chose songs that I knew I loved that were from different disciplines. It was important to me that they not all be great American songbook. So I had lots of contemporary material, something by Adam Gettle, something by Carol Hall,
Right.
not just Gershwin
Yeah.
and Porter.
Right.
And there was one of the songs that I had always wanted to do, and they all had to be songs I'd never performed before. That was the other rule I made for myself. So one of
This is a
the
challenge.
well, that I try to do that with every show.
Yes, I know.
I always try to
know.
put in
And
material
that
I've never performed before.
comes
So one of the songs that I had chosen was this song by Ira Gershwin and Kurt Weill, Tchaikovsky and Other Russians.
Danny Kaye. No,
Right.
Made him a star.
Exactly, the one that I just did to open the show. And that song, I thought, wouldn't it be a great number? Because as you heard, it's just a list of 48 Russian composers. I thought, wouldn't it be a great number if I say who each of these, I get overzealous in my ideas, who each of these 48 composers
No,
were.
not you, Mom. I don't believe it.
And then I could play a little bit by each of these 48 composers, and then I'll bet I can work it out so that I can sing the song in counterpoint while I'm playing what they wrote, their piece of music, what they wrote. And as I was putting that number together, I realized that's not a number, that's the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was miraculous was every single one of those songs that I had chosen before knowing that that was what the show was going to be, fit in perfectly to the stories, that
you
I was
were
telling
doing.
about these composers.
Well, that again is one of your very special gifts, and I know that in each show that has followed, subsequent show, you've done something similar. For example, your recent one,
Runnin' Wild.
Runnin' Wild, tells the story of the early 20s, right?
Well,
And
the Runnin' Wild is songs from Prohibition.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Every single song in it is about sex, drugs, or alcohol.
Your favorite subject.
All three of them are. That's my life. That's my life. Except for the drugs. The only drugs I take are Mucinex. You know. But yeah. So I was fascinated by that era, and I was fascinated by, particularly by the hypocrisy of that era. I love the juxtaposition of this stringent law of prohibition causing everybody to drink, even if they didn't want to originally. It's just been, in that case, I've got to have a drink.
Yeah,
I love that. And it reminded me of, as anyone who has seen the show knows, of the zealous Christians who lived across the street from me when I was growing up, who tried to convert me to Christianity when I was 5 years
Because you
old.
were going to hell, for sure, in a
Well,
handbasket.
and that's the thing.
Yes. I know.
The woman who lives across the street from us used to tell us Bible stories. She had a felt board, a board covered in felt, and she had these Jesus Christ action figures that had felt on the back of them. And she'd tell us little Bible stories with the Jesus Christ action figures. And we'd sit there and we'd be drinking our Kool-Aid and eating our cookies
And
while
you
we're
were
watching
drinking-
Mrs. T
drinking the
tell these
Kool-Aid,
stories.
all right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, Debbie, the daughter, who was my friend, Debbie and I used to go into the closet and take off all our clothes and show each other our things. And this is the hypocrisy that I'm talking about.
Yes.
And I thought I get what prohibition was, because I get that. I get that idea of sitting there just going along with it, and then, could I have a drink? You know, it's like,
absolutely.
so that show, the running hidden through line is the hypocrisy, not as a judgment about hypocritical people, but just about how hypocrisy makes life so scintillating. That's what the show is really about.
Things that you did say, which about some show, I'm not sure which, and this must have taken time throughout your journey in New York and with these various these ideas that you had. The more personal you got, the more universal the show became.
Well, that's not my idea. That's
Well-
I think that's common knowledge, isn't it?
Well, it takes people a long time, performers a long time, I think. Isn't that kind of one of the reasons why?
See, I started out from personal,
Yeah.
and then I started doing themes and talking about other people's lives and other things. It all started out personal, and I think people have been asking me. I just came back from Australia, and I did a lot of interviews there, and I do the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, which is the largest cabaret festival in the world. It's
Fabulous.
enormous.
Yeah.
And we play everything from 100-seat theaters to 2,300-seat theaters in this festival. And
Is
it's
that how
2.5
we got Judy Connelly to come over and
Yeah.
David
David Campbell.
Campbell,
It's
yeah.
2.5
Thought
weeks
so.
long, and it's all cabaret all the time, and it's really, really wonderful. And anyway, I've done it 6 times.
Yeah,
And
wow.
I just did my 6th, and I was answering a lot of press, and people were saying, "Well, what is cabaret?" They say, "You've done cabaret, you've done theater. I have a cabaret. I have 2 cabaret shows that were transferred to off-Broadway theaters and became theatrical pieces. And there was a change that had to make. There was a shift that had to be
Sure,
made.
yeah.
But I personally think that what defines Cabaret is that the people sitting in the audience have a drink in their hand and maybe even something to eat. That's one thing. And the other thing is that it stems from the person doing the show.
Yeah.
It's their personal whatever. It's their personal take on Cole
Point of
Porter.
view.
It's the reason that Gershwin moves them. It's about them. It's ultimately about them. And that's different than theater where it's about a character or where it's about a larger theme. I mean, it can be about a larger theme in Cabaret, but I think it has to come from the person.
Has to come from the person.
And that's
yeah.
what makes it Cabaret.
Well, you're the person that has really, and I loved another story that I read that after one of your triumphs, I think it was Town Hall maybe, perhaps, you were on your way to Sardi's and you looked
that was my
around,
50th birthday.
your 50th birthday, and you said, this is my personal property.
You know what it was? It was that night for my 50th birthday. Because I'm on the board of this organization called Art Start.
Yes, and I wanted to bring that up, so I'm glad you did.
We bring arts programs to homeless shelters. We work with kids in the
Fabulous.
prison system,
Yeah, wonderful.
teaching them to self-express through the arts. And we have found
So important.
Well, we have found that just allowing them to self-express through the arts in any way that they want. We don't edit and we don't control. If we allow that, they tend to not go toward a life of violence. And it's just been shown over and over and over and over again.
yeah.
And also, our kids tend to graduate high school, where other kids coming out of the prison system don't.
Yeah.
It's really amazing what we do. Anyway, if I may say so.
Yeah, you should.
So that night of my 50th birthday, I wanted it to be a fundraiser for Art Start.
That's right.
So I
You
booked
had-
Town Hall, and I had just done the Adelaide Festival with Cheetah Rivera. And while we were having breakfast one morning, I said to Cheetah, you know, I want to do a big benefit this year for Art Start. Would you do it? And she said, of course I'll do it. I'll be happy to do it. When I told her what
Don't you
it
love
was.
Yeah.
And we were batting around other ideas to try to sell tickets. And it was a man named Ed Casis, actually, who's a friend of mine, who said, well, I know Bill Cosby. You want to ask Bill Cosby? I said, no, I don't think so. No. I want a big name.
Yeah, oh, God.
And so we asked Bill Cosby, and he did it.
And he did it.
And
See, sometimes the timing is right, the stars are aligned, and
the stars were aligned that night. So I did a half hour, Cheetah did a half hour, and then we took an intermission, and then Bill came out and did a half hour.
yeah, it's perfect.
We sold out Town Hall, of course, with
Yeah.
names like that.
Sure, of course.
I tried out some of my new material from the show that I wrote for my 50th birthday called Crazy 1961.
Which I did see.
And
Wonderful.
thank you. And the material went great. The audience loved it. Cheetah and I did a number together at the end of Act One, and my Art Start kids had written rap verses
Yes,
to If My Friends Could See Me Now. So it started with me and Cheetah singing If My Friends Could See Me Now, and then the kids came out and stormed the stage, and then
Fantastic.
Cheetah and I were performing the rap with the kids, and we brought down the house. And as I was leaving this benefit, where we raised over $100,000 for Art Start that night,
Wonderful.
just in ticket sales. As I was leaving this benefit, I was walking to Sardi's, where my best friend Karen Lotman threw this party for me that you just can't believe. Everybody in the world was there.
Yeah,
And
well,
I knew they were going to be there. And I'm leaving Sardi's, and leaving Town Hall, and I'm wearing a new outfit I just got for myself from Etro. I look dazzling. And I was walking down.
If I do say so
I
myself.
did. If I had seen me, I would have cruised me. I would have come on to me. I would have had me. And I was walking down 43rd Street toward 44th Street, and I was singing, tonight I really feel New York is my personal property.
It must have been a great feeling.
It was, I haven't ever felt like that before since.
Well, you're going to have a lot more evenings like that, Mark. You're one of a kind. You are our court jester, crown prince as well. But,
Well, thank you.
But really, congratulations on all your success, and we're very, very proud of you and what you've meant to this community. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn DiMenna.
You're
Wasn't this
very
fun,
welcome.
sort of being cozy on the couch?
It sure was. It was great, just great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us for our interview with the great Mark Nadler. We look forward to seeing you again very soon for Cabaret Scenes. I'm Lynn DiMenna.
Soloviev, Prokofiev, Tiyankin, Koroschenko, there's Glinka, Winkler, Bortniansky, Rybakov, Ilyinski, there's Medner, Balakirev, Zolotarev, and Puchinsky, and Sokolov, and Kopilov, Dukelski, and Klinovsky, and Shostakovich, Borodiglier, and Navakovsky, and Leonov, and Koganov, Markievich, Penchenko, and Dargomitsky, Sterenchovsky, and Vasilenko, Stravinsky, Winsky, Korsakov, Mussorgsky, and Gachanov, Kulsovsky, and Stravinsky, Winsky, Korsakov, Mussorgsky, and Gachanov, and Glazunov, and Cesar Grisalennikov, Rachmaninoff, Stravinsky, and Gachanov. I really have to stop. The subject has been dwelled upon enough. Stravinsky, Gachanov, Rumshinsky, Rachmaninoff. I really have to stop because we all have undergone enough. It's wonderful. It's marvelous. You should care for me. Soft nights, it's paradise. It's what I love to see, my dear.